Firewall, we have some breaking news we want to be able to bring to you right away. You know, the battle for the church has not been on the front page of the papers, but it's on the front page of all of us that are believers. And probably the most egregious assault on religious liberty was taking place in California, with one church in particular where Pastor Cheon and his fellowship were so aggressively treated that they were talking about arresting not only the pastors, but the church members and fining them like $1,000 each for attending church. And I want you to hear from Pastor Che directly what's happening. Pastor, welcome on to Firewall. And you got to explain this to us, because what's happened is so fast and the intervention has been so profound that I think everybody needs to know about it. So break us in, catch us up on what's happening.
Well, first of all, thank you, Lance. It's great to be with you, my friend, and wish Annabelle, your family, Merry Christmas for me. But yes, it's unprecedented. What happened is because we went to the Supreme Court for asking for an injunction. An injunction would be for the courts to intervene against this draconian threat of arrest. And we're talking about not just arresting me, but church members. And I've said this a number of times. You know, I came from Korea, and my father was a pastor in North Korea when Christianity was legal in North Korea. And then in 1950, they arrested all the pastors. If it wasn't for the U.S. government army intervening with MacArthur Douglas coming into Korea, my father would have been executed. So we have been told these stories about North Korea becoming communist. And I'm thinking to myself, this is not communist North Korea. This is not communist China. This is the United States, and they want to arrest church members who are law-abiding with no record. They just want to worship. And ironically, also, we're letting out prisoners in California because of COVID-19.
So you got prisoners being released in the street and church members threatened to get arrested and fined for going to church. And this is all under Governor Newsom's order. So then something unusual happened, because this injunction means that you really got to you're on your way to the Ninth Circuit, right? And that's where the case is to be tried.
Right. First of all, let me just say that we asked for an injunction right off the bat, and this is before Amy Coney Barrett, of course, became confirmed. So back in September, we asked for an injunction because I got the letter September the 2nd from our city prosecutor saying that we will be arrested, we will be fined $1,000 each time we meet, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of fines coming our way. And so we asked for an injunction, but unfortunately, we had a district federal judge who was appointed by President Obama, and he just said, no, I'm not going to lift the injunction. So then we appealed to the Supreme Court. And sure enough, they got back to us, and this is unprecedented because Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel, who's done a phenomenal job, by the way, Matt, my attorney, said, normally they will wait for you to go to the Ninth Circuit, your appeal, and then once you make your appeal, then they will intervene and give you the injunction if they choose to. But they immediately contacted us right after the November 30th decision of 5-4 for the churches in New York. So we were contacted on Tuesday after Thanksgiving. What happened was that, you know, you have to go back and forth with Governor Newsom. And so we submitted our appeal for injunction. And then he had to respond, and he responded after Thanksgiving, even though he was supposed to do it before. Again, he's the law to himself, and so he responded on Monday. And then on Tuesday, we get an email from the Supreme Court to Matt Staver's office saying, please send us your response to Governor Newsom's response ASAP. And so he did. And then on Wednesday, the Supreme Court they put us immediately on top of the docket. That's what happened. And so what this signals to me is that they were proactively initiating for us to deal with this issue so they could rule on it quickly. And so they ruled, and they said, we will honor the request, and all the lower courts' decision to persecute you are nullified. And so so I won't get arrested, in other words, that's our church members are. And so it was a tremendous victory, but more importantly, basically they're saying that we're going to side with the church, and the church is essential. And regardless of the lockdown, I believe that either the Ninth Circuit will make a decision with a signal coming strongly from the Supreme Court, or we'll go to the Supreme Court and now we know we have a majority and the churches will never be locked down again because of a pandemic or a virus. So we are setting a precedent, and we are seeing a major move of the Supreme Court and where they're at. And so the reason why I think this is so important, especially in time of this election, is because I believe that this election is going to go to the Supreme Court. And I don't think it's a coincidence that God would allow Trump to not just nominate, but confirm 3 justices. I mean, no president does that. I mean, maybe one, if one, or 2, but he did with 3. And not only 3, we're talking about Amy Coney Barrett, who's an evangelical Catholic charismatic who loves Jesus, who's a constitutionalist. And I really believe that they are eager to reestablish the highest law of the land, which is our Constitution in America.
And so I just want to read something which has to do with the, I think this was probably the comment from Justice Gorsuch in the New York case, because there was a New York case and your case that both came up, and they took these as priorities. And Gorsuch says, it is past time to make plain that while the pandemic poses many grave challenges, there is no world in which the Constitution tolerates color-coded executive edicts that reopen liquor stores and bike shops, but shutters churches, synagogues, and mosques. Out of that list of 10 essential things, what order is the church in California?
It's really at the bottom. In other words, restaurants, again, are closed down, by the way, with a new lockdown, because there's been a spike in the coronavirus, which is so ridiculous because, I believe in herd immunity. I believe that people who are healthy, get it. Of course, we encourage people with underlying condition, those are high-risk people, to stay at home, watch online. So they're not invited. But of course, we also give them the freedom to choose. So anyone can come to our service, because this is America. It's we the people, and we're adults, and we can make a decision if we want to attend service or not. And that's been really our philosophy in all this. And so, but what's happened, though, is that this new lockdown took place because of a spike that took place in California. And I was just talking to one of our business owners in our church, and he owns a salon. Is a very high end for the major actors in Hollywood. They do the Emmy Award, Academy Award, ESPY Awards, etc., right in downtown LA. And he was just so discouraged because he had to lock down again. And he had enough savings to last through the first major lockdown, but he just said, I'm not sure I can make it again. We're talking about 19,000 businesses have gone bankrupt in California. So this, to me, is criminal. And so he's locked us down. And so when things do open up, we're still on the end of the list. In other words, he's putting gyms to open up, salons to open up, restaurants to open up before the church. And to me, I don't know, Sue and I, my wife and I were talking and praying this morning, that I think he comes from a Catholic background. He must have had a real bad nun. He was really wounded, because it seems like he's really persecuting the church big time here, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And because we wrote to him and we said we've been essential for 2,000 years. Because yes, we're concerned about COVID-19. We know it's contagious, but we also care about the emotional well-being, the mental well-being, and above all, the spiritual well-being. I mean, we're talking about suicide is off the charts, alcoholism is off the charts, domestic violence, child abuse. And of course, as pastors, we deal with that. And that's not even on their radar. And the other thing that's really tragic, they're not giving us the science. Yes, there's a spike because there's more tests. And it needs to go through young people. But the death rate is dropping in California. And that's what's so tragic about all this.
Yeah, and what they're doing is they're killing 19,000 businesses, which is bankrupting 19,000 and others also. There are others that are going to be affected by this, more coming. And they're doing this because what we have to realize is the left, by its nature, wants to be able to control. I mean, it's weird. You've got Governor Cuomo and Governor Newsom, both these radical left Democrats that want to exercise this dictatorial control over the freedoms of their state, all in the name of a crisis. And it's almost like COVID became a gift for them, because it gives them the ability to make these kinds of executive orders that actually cut right into the liberties and the civil liberties of citizens who, by nature, we cooperate. So you did. I mean, for a long time, you were like, along with Jack Hibbs and others, you were actually not having church. And at some point, how did you arrive at the decision that it was time to open up shop again?
Well, we knew that this virus was serious, especially as President Trump came on middle of March 15th, and had mandated a 15-day lockdown, which turned into a 30-day lockdown. And we want to submit to governing authorities and health officials and scientists. So, my brother's a surgeon. We have so many doctors in our church. So it's not that we're against medical science. But when we began to realize, when they were saying flatten the curve, there was no curve. The hospitals were empty. We Newsom asked Trump to send a hospital ship to Los Angeles, and President Trump complied. And it was just sitting on the dockets for like weeks, months without being used. And so he sent it back. And so I'm not saying that, we've had deaths, but most of them are deaths not from COVID, but with COVID and some other issue like cancer or diabetes or, asthma, emphysema, etc. And so we began to realize, and consulted with my brother and other physicians in our church, we decided to open up. But to be honest, Lance, I felt like God spoke to me. I felt like I had an encounter with the Lord. And I wish I had time to share it, but basically I felt like the Lord say that we need to take a stand for his glory, for the church. We need to obey the commandment, Hebrews 10:25, not forsake the assembling of the saints, especially as we see the day drawing closer of his second coming. And, it could be 1,000 years from now, but it could also be next week. And so we decided to open up. I contacted Matt Staver. I met him during the call years when I was helping mobilize for the call, and I asked him if he would be our attorney, and just to cover us, because we're going to open up. And sure enough, thank God I did that, because we got the letter from our city prosecutor saying that they would arrest me and fine our church. And so that's where Matt came in. He immediately asked for an injunction here in the district court in California. We lost that, but then he went to the Supreme Court and we won that. And to me, that's very, very significant for all the churches. This is a victory, not just for Harvest Rock Church. This is a victory for the body of Christ and all churches in the United States of America. So now we have a Supreme Court that's going to back up religious liberty and the local church. And so this is very encouraging. And I also think that they're going to back up President Trump with the election fraud that's taking place. And I feel that it's a huge, monumental task because of the lack of time. But I really believe that as we see the lawsuits, of course, President Trump has sued Wisconsin and Georgia, et cetera. I believe that the Supreme Court will look at this.
We're doing this live right now, but I want to just take a break because we're also doing this on television. So we're going to take a break right now, but this is too good to stop. So I want to do another segment with you on where we're going now, which is the prophetic significance of this battle. So we'll be right back.